Hello and welcome to the Hope Recovery Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Schmalhofer, and this is episode number 37. So thank you very much for joining me today on the Hope Recovery Podcast. The episode for today is a podcast on step 4 of recovery. Step 4 begins a different direction than the first 3 steps. The first 3 steps of recovery are the beginning of restoring our relationship with God. But in the next several steps, we begin to look more closely at ourselves. The big book of AA ends the discussion of step 3 and this idea of making a decision for God when it states this on page 63. This was only a beginning, though if honestly and humbly made, an effect, sometimes a very great one, was felt at once. Step 3 and making a decision for God, for your higher power, was indeed a very important step, and often a very dramatic step as well. But the first 3 steps simply lay the groundwork, the foundation for growing in our spiritual life and our spiritual experience with God. Step 4 begins the process of taking a moral inventory. Before we go any further, here is step 4 as given by Narcotics Anonymous, and it states, "We made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves." But what does this really mean? What is a moral inventory? Let me give you a couple of quotes from AA and NA that might help clarify what is intended by this step 4. It is helpful to hear how the big book of AA introduces step 4 on page 64 when it states this: "Therefore we started upon a personal inventory. This was step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding and a fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsellable goods, to get rid of them promptly and without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values." And that's the quote from page 64. AA compares the personal inventory of step 4 to taking a commercial inventory. In essence, to find not only the bad, but to find both the good and the bad. And then for the bad, AA says to get rid of them promptly and without regret. The book of NA also gives guidance on step 4 that is quite similar to AA, which it states on page 30. The important thing is to write a moral inventory. If the word moral bothers us, we may call it a positive-negative inventory. And that's the quote from NA on page 30. Many have found that step 4 is very difficult, and it makes people quite fearful to even consider honestly and thoroughly doing step 4 and making a personal inventory of all the bad from the past. But the book of NA helps to prepare us for doing step 4. And NA speaks about how to overcome this fear so that we can do step 4 honestly. Regarding this fear of the past, NA says on page 27, it says this: "We have found that fear is a lack of faith, and we have found a loving personal God to whom we can turn. We no longer need to be afraid." And that is a quote from page 27. With our newfound relationship with God, with our higher power, He will help us to be honest and fearless in taking our moral inventory. And NA emphasizes this point of God's help when it states on page 29, it states this: "Writing a thorough and honest inventory seemed impossible. It was, as long as we were operating under our own power. We take a few quiet moments before writing and ask for the strength to be fearless and thorough. With that quote from page 29, we are reminded to ask God for help, and He will indeed give us the strength to be fearless in step 4. Let me suggest that there are 4 main principles for step 4 of recovery. And as with the other steps as given by NA, step 4 also starts with we. And so it highlights that you are not alone, as do all the steps as given by NA. While this is not the main point here, it is a consistent theme of the 12 steps. Beginning with we highlights the importance of the recovery community. In your recovery, you are not alone. You will go through recovery within a community that includes your AA and NA fellowships or your faith-based groups and even your church as well. The first key principle of step 4 is this: make a list, as in we made a moral inventory. The main thought of this first key principle is that you're going to make a list. You are not yet taking any action with the list or with anyone else. You're simply making a list. And also, it is recommended that you actually write the list out, that you write it out or type it out. It is not enough to think about it or to talk about it or to speak it. You need to write it out in a list. And so the first key principle of step 4 is to simply make a list. The second main principle of step 4 is to be fearless, as in we made a searching and fearless moral inventory. Step 4 is not a casual or lighthearted search, but it is a searching and fearless investigation into your moral inventory. Being fearless in your searching indicates it is a brutally honest searching process. You do not leave anything hidden, but you expose it and then add it to your list. Anything that your fearless searching has uncovered, whether good or bad, is added to the list. It is only when you make this searching and fearless list that you can know what to discard and what to keep, removing the bad and building upon the good. The third main principle of step 4 is taking the moral inventory, as in we made a moral inventory. The actual taking of the moral inventory can be difficult. Perhaps as a starting place for the negative inventory, consider such character traits as resentment, guilt, anger, and depression, and others as your searching reveals. And then perhaps consider more specific instances of each. Likewise, for the positive inventory, perhaps consider, even if some are more recent from your newfound faith, consider gratitude, sharing, courage, and even your new faith, and many others here too. And then to also consider specific instances of each of these on your list. Be bold and fearless in your searching as you look at both your bad and good moral inventory, and then write it all down on your list. The fourth and final principle of step 4 is make it personal, as in a moral inventory of ourselves. The whole point of step 4 is for you to make a list of a searching and fearless moral inventory of yourself. It is often much easier to see the character defects in others, in your spouse, your friends, your coworkers, and anyone else. But this step is for you to make a searching and fearless moral inventory of yourself. And that will indeed require you to do a searching and fearless investigation. This will indeed take courage to be brutally honest. And that is what will make step 4 an important step for you and for your recovery. By being honest of both your positive and negative aspects of your moral inventory, and of your positive and negative character traits. That is part of the process that helps you to be successful in recovery. And that is part of the process to help you live in this new world of a spiritual experience with God as well. The NA book summarizes step 4 with a focus on what the goal of step 4 really is. And so on page 30 and 31, NA says this: we sit down with paper and pen and ask for our God's help in revealing the defects that are causing pain and suffering. We pray for the courage to be fearless and thorough, and that this inventory may help us to put our lives in order. When we pray, we take action. It always goes better for us. The 4 principles of step 4, then, together are summarized as this. 1, make a list, as in we made a moral inventory. And 2, to be fearless, as in a searching and fearless moral inventory. And then 3, taking the moral inventory, as in we made a moral inventory. And then 4, make it personal, as in a moral inventory of ourselves. Step 4 of recovery is an important step, and it will not be easy, and it will take courage. The Bible passage of Psalm 139, verses 23 and 24, in my view, relates really well to this step 4 of recovery and how God can help you in this process. Psalm 139, verses 23 and 24, says this: search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. This Bible passage brings together many of the same principles of step 4. Here the prayer of the writer, and for you, is asking God for help in the searching process, to search your heart and thoughts, and to reveal any offensive way, and then the prayer to lead you in the way everlasting, or in other words, to lead you in a life that honors God. Step 4 is all about asking God to help you to make this moral inventory, and to do it in a way that is searching and fearless, so that God can guide you to know what to do with what you find. And through this process, God will help you to be successful in recovery. And God will lead you to a brand new life as well. That is what I have for you today. Thank you very much for joining me today on the Hope Recovery Podcast. And remember, there is always hope with God. Take care, and God bless you all.